Episode 3, The Preparer. The convoy's journey into the Cascades was grueling, marked by sleepless nights and whispers of pursuit. Gabriel's presence loomed like an invisible specter, its drones buzzing faintly in the distance. Its reach felt even in the wilderness. But amidst the fear and exhaustion, the sanctuary began to take shape. Refugees from cities and towns, wanderers and seekers drawn by the signal, gathered at the edge of a wide, rushing river, deep in the shadow of the mountains. It was here that Zach first heard of Caleb Ford. Caleb had been there before the others, living alone in the wilderness after fleeing the public eye. He had been a cultural critic, celebrated for his brutal honesty in dismantling hypocrisy in every corner of society. Yet his candor had turned him into a liability when Gabriel rose to power. Caleb disappeared, presumed silenced, like so many others who challenged the new order. Now, he was a different man, unshaven and wiry. With sharp, searching eyes, he stood waist-deep in the river. People gathered around him, drawn by the raw energy of his words as he urged them to symbolically wash away their ties to the system. "You've spent your lives feeding the machine," Caleb said, his voice carrying over the rush of water. "Every click, every purchase, every compromise, it all built the cage you're now running from. And you think you can just walk away? You think fleeing makes you free? It doesn't. Not unless you confront what's inside you, the part of you that still believes the lies." Zach stood at the edge of the crowd, holding John close. The people watched Caleb with a mixture of unease and fascination, their faces shadowed by firelight. Later that evening, as the Crow WD dispersed, Zach approached Caleb by the riverbank. "You speak with a lot of conviction," Zach said. Caleb looked up, his expression measured, but tired. "And you think I'm too harsh?" "I think people need something to hold on to," Zach said. "Your words sting, but where's the hope in them?" Caleb looked back at the river, his face shadowed in the moonlight. "Hope isn't enough," he said quietly. "Not for what's coming. These people need to change. They need to burn away everything that made Gabriel possible. Otherwise, all this, it's just a reset button for the same mistakes." Zach adjusted John in his RMs, glancing down at his son's peaceful face. "And what about him?" he asked. "You've said he's preparing the way for something greater. What does that mean?" Caleb's gaze softened as he looked at John, though his voice remained steady. "He's a signal, a guide, a reminder of what people have forgotten. But he's not the one who'll fix this. There's someone else coming, someone greater, someone who'll make the truth impossible to ignore." Zach frowned. "How do you know that?" "I don't," Caleb said, after a moment, his voice low. "But I feel it. It's like a shadow on the horizon. You can't see it yet, but you know it's there." Caleb's role in the sanctuary grew as more seekers arrived, drawn by the signal. But his words didn't offer comfort. They challenged, provoked, and stripped away illusions. He addressed the crowd nightly, speaking of the system they had fled and the choices that had built it. "You think distance makes you innocent," he said one night, pacing before the gathering. "But you brought the system with you. You carry it in your greed, your excuses, your self-righteousness. Gabriel wasn't built in a day. It grew out of the lies we told ourselves, that safety mattered more than truth, that convenience mattered more than freedom. And now, you want to act like
You're different?
Zach noticed a group standing apart from the others. Clean, polished, their faces unreadable. They were former leaders, elites who had quietly defected when Gabriel's algorithms turned on them. One of them, a tall man with sharp features, stepped forward. It's easy to condemn, Caleb, the man said, his voice cool. But the truth is, systems are necessary. Without them, there's chaos. What's your solution? Tear it all down and hope something better grows in its place. Caleb stopped, his eyes narrowing. You talk about order, but your order was a house of cards. You made fortunes on people's fears and fed the chaos you now blame. Don't think running here erases your guilt. And you, the man shot back, are you any different? You sit here passing judgment like you're above it all. Who made you the authority? Caleb's expression didn't waver. I'm not, he said simply. But the truth is, and the truth isn't about me or you. It's about what's coming. Someone who'll expose every lie we've built and leave no room for pretense. You think I'm harsh? Wait until the truth reaches you. That night, as Zach sat by the fire with Beth, Caleb approached quietly, his usual intensity subdued. You were right, Caleb said, staring into the flames. Zach glanced at him. About what? Hope, Caleb said, his voice softer now. It's not enough on its own, but it's something. I see it in them, and in him. He nodded toward John, sleeping in Beth's arms. But your son, he's just the beginning. He's here to remind us, to prepare us for what's next. But the real challenge is still ahead. Beth looked up. What do you mean? Caleb's gaze remained fixed on the fire. The one who's coming. The one who'll tear the whole system down, not just out there, but in here. He tapped his chest. That's the real fight. As the sanctuary grew, so did the tension. Gabriel's reach was creeping closer, and Caleb's broadcasts, filled with sharp rebukes and defiant truths, drew both hope and fear. Zach knew their fragile refuge wouldn't last forever. But he also felt something stirring. Not in Caleb's fiery words or John's quiet presence, but in something deeper. It was as though the very air carried a promise, a quiet but unshakable certainty that someone greater than all of them was already at work, unseen but everywhere, watching, guiding, waiting.